Hey, good evening, everybody. And you are on episode. My God, I'm terrible at this. Chris, what episode are we? I know you know. It's like 146.
No, I think it's 149 ish.
Wow, 149.
If
Man.
we're not counting our Thursday stuff.
Yeah, we're not counting Thursday. So 149. Wow.
These next
That's
one next
incredible.
one's the 150.
Yeah, that's the 150. I like that. And tonight we have joining us Andrew Zysek. Andrew has been a guest on our show. This will be the third time now, Andrew, right?
Yes, I think so.
And Andrew is a trapper, book writer. He's a little bit of everything, and we always enjoy having him on. It's a pleasure. So, Andrew, for the guys who have never seen you on here before, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Well, I got some books. This is the man who taught me. This is my very first book. That was produced in 2018. Um, I have two other books, but they're not here. I have Mink Trapping Fundamentals. This is my my third book that I wrote. Um, this is probably my best how-to selling book. And then I own Andrew Zysek Enterprises, which is this is our catalog. This is last year's catalog. We're still waiting on the new catalog to come in. It should be here within the next couple days. And At Andrew Zysek Enterprises, we sell trapping supplies, some hunting supplies, broadheads, deer scents. We do sell some fishing supplies, and we also buy fur, and then I do a lot of outdoor writing as well.
So, Andrew, one thing I know you really love to do, and you do a lot of it, is writing your books.
Yes,
What your newest book out there right now? What's your newest book?
the newest book is What I Know About Beavers, and I got a bunch of those in the shop, and I didn't think to bring one in here, so I apologize about that.
That's all right.
But that book came out last winter, and that came out kind of at the eve of the beaver market being um, very much in demand. The beaver market, the hatter market especially, kind of fell off. They're down about 40% of where they were a year ago at this time, and I think they'll be probably closer to $5 or $7 a pound once trapping season starts again. Um, they were as high as $18 a pound.
Wow.
Um, yeah, that's a lot of money for just the fur itself.
So, what's your intake on why? What's your intake on why that has dropped so dramatic?
Well, that dropped almost exclusively because we flooded the market. Um, some buyers and trappers they flooded the market. The market went up slow. No, actually, the market went up super fast, way too fast, and people flooded it. And then you had the effects of supply and demand. And now that the orders are filled, they have nowhere else to. They don't need them anymore. You know, they still need them, but they don't need there is not as big as the demand because the orders been filled.
Yeah, it's like a junkyard. You take your salvage there when they're hurting, they give you top dollar.
Yep.
And when they have what they need, you get pennies on the dollar.
Now there's a lot of truth to that. Whenever there's a big war, scrap metal is very expensive, and when there isn't a war, it usually goes down. But that's unfortunate, but it does happen in business. The but the book itself was a very good book. I'm working on a new one called Born Under a Wandering Star. That kind of picks up where the man who taught me left off, and it goes into building my business and my writing career and all that stuff as well.
Tell us a little more about it. Tell us a little more in depth of this book. I'm interested. I love your book. So
Well, Born Under a Wandering Star really picks up as soon as I graduate high school. Um, And you gotta understand, when I graduated high school, I wasn't really living with my parents. I was living in a little 10 by 12 shack. I was living in a trapping cabin. There was no running water, no electricity, no shower. In order to take a shower, I had to go out to my mom's, which was about 10 miles away, to take a shower. Um, that was an interesting experience because, I mean, obviously with gasoline, it was a hell of a cost, but but you manage. Um, and well, I lived there for 6 years, and I slept on an army cot, and a World War II surplus green army cot, and I heated the cabin with firewood. I stayed there. Um, I, I I stayed there as long as I could up until it got super cold, and then I would move in with my grandparents for the remainder of the winter. I write about all that, and I write about starting my outdoor writing career. I was trapping first, and then writing came after that, and then my uh, um, my writing had kind of picked up and took off on its own, and I started a business. But there was a lot of pressure from my family. My family was not very happy with what I chose to do, and there was a lot of arguments there. Um, uh, my grandpa especially had different plans for me. He wanted me to be a carpenter. I don't mind carpentry, but concrete and bars, you can forget about it. I don't want anything to do with it. I've done it. I don't like it. I've laid my share of block. I don't like doing that. It's not that it's hard. It's tough work. And I chose the outdoor career, and that's kind of where the book centers around.
So what was your inspiration in starting to write books? Like where did it all start and come from?
Well, that actually came from somebody I had met in around eighth grade. Someone had a lot of influence on me, and writing was a big thing for me. English was a very big thing because she kind of pushed that, and I became a writer. Um, I actually had a stint in music, believe it or not, and that's covered in "Born Under a Wandering Star." I had a thing where I would write song lyrics and things like that, and I did play the guitar for a little while, and I don't really remember much about it. Um, but I really liked the band The Police, and that was their big band from the 1980s. Actually, in the early 80s, they were probably the biggest band in the world. They had a album called Synchronicity with a song called Every Breath You Take, and I really liked that song. And so I learned how to kind of play it and all that stuff. But um, my my thing wasn't music. I loved trapping, and I had been a trapper almost all my life. And when I was in high school, they had me in English 12 or whatever my 12th grade year. They had me write a life changing experience. I had three of them, technically two, because the one is kind of wrapped into the other one. I got hit by a car at age 11. I almost got killed. I mean, I was actually kind of dead because I was crashing on the way. As soon as they picked me up, I was crashing before I got to the hospital, and they had to have a meeting at the fire hall. They didn't think I'd make it, and they mercy flighted me all the way to Women and Children's Hospital in Buffalo, and that was like an 8-minute flight, and they had me stabilized um, after about 3 days of uncertain which way I was going to go. Um, And so I could have wrote about that, and there was something else that happened in the hospital later, but I don't really want to talk about that. But um, uh, I could have wrote about that, and I'd have had 100 on it if I'd have wrote about it for the paper. Instead, I wrote an article on how I became an outdoorsman and how I became a trapper. I grew up with my grandfather. My grandfather raised me more or less. I didn't really have a dad. Well, I can't say I didn't have one. I had one. I just didn't have a. I didn't have one at the same time. If that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense.
And my grandpa was my dad, so he trapped. He was a professional trapper, and I just learned how to do what he did because that was what he did, and I really enjoyed it. Well, I wrote the article, and it was just a paper at the time, and the teacher gave me 100 on it. She loved the story I wrote, and I said, "Well, I'll keep this." I kept a copy of it. I hid it underneath my desk at home, and I just left it there for a little while, and I think sometime in the winter time of 2014, I sent it into Tara Roach, who's the editor of Trapper's World, and shortly after, on February 21st, 2015, I had a letter come in the mail, which I can get that for you because I framed this when I was younger because I didn't think it would ever happen again. And this was the letter I got, and saying that they would publish it for $50, and which to me at that time was a big thing. And so they did publish it in the November December 2015 issue of Trapper's World, and it kind of started from there. And then one magazine after another, and it was a slow crawl. And even today, I think I'm not a very good writer, but um, I guess somebody's listening somewhere. Uh, I hope, but I mean, maybe one, maybe two, but no more than that. But that's how it started.
Listen, if
And
you're selling books, somebody's paying attention. Remember that.
well, I guess you could say that.
Somebody's paying attention, or you wouldn't be selling books. They're not
That's
selling them to
true.
look at the cover, right?
Well, that's true. It's but yeah, I ended up framing that letter um, because at that time it was a big accomplishment. My family, no one had ever done that. Actually, here, um, growing up with my grandparents, I didn't really. I kind of had it figured out that I'd be like a construction worker growing up, and
Now you're building books.
you could say that, and building a family too. Um, and I I didn't mind it. I like working with wood, building shelves and things like that, building cupboards, building cabinets, and all that kind of stuff. Putting in windows, finish work around the windows. That's all real fun. Baseboards, all that stuff is fun. You get into concrete and bars, that's a whole different world, and I don't really like it. And roofing, that can be fun as long as you're not on a gable roof that's really steep pitched. Um, you do okay. Um, I I preferred writing, and in the book I talk about that. That I dreamt of doing something that nobody else in my family had ever done, and I really wanted to make a living trapping. That was my first goal. I wanted my freedom. Uh, I didn't want to have to really answer to a boss. I mean, there has been times that I've worked for other people, and I have a day job, but I wanted the ability that I could make it on my own if necessary, because I realized very young that a day job is really a trap. You spend your life working 40 years for somebody. At the end of the 40 years, they replace you immediately, and then you're forgotten about. Now granted, that's going to happen no matter what, but you at least, instead of making him rich, you have a chance to make yourself better off. Maybe not rich, but better off.
And pass it from generation to generation.
Yeah, that's kind of what I kind of thought. Not sure if I'm right or wrong, but
Oh, I think that makes perfect sense, to be straightforward. I always say I work to make someone else rich.
it's but there's a lot of truth to that. It's um and I so I became an outdoor writer. It took me a while. Now I got if I could move all the magazines over here, I would. But there's a lot of them. But there's a stack of them over on the other side of my office, and that has that took years to put together. Um, and there's been more denials than there has been um, published works, believe it or not. And then I got the 4 books, and I'm working on the 5th one. And there's a mystery novel too that I've been working on for several years. I'd like to see where that goes. Um, I don't really know where that goes because I've never done anything like that. But we'll see.
I think it's cool. I think what you're doing is awesome. I think the fact that you're taking something you learned and turning it into something, and something you love, and turning it into a lifestyle, I think is a big deal. And now you started a family, so you're going to be able to pass this on at some point.
Well, that's
Um,
kind of my plan. Um, I We had a little girl in December, and um, she's a lot like she looks exactly like her mother. Um, which that's good. I mean, if she looked like me, she'd have a lot of problems.
oh
But,
Jesus!
but it's she's a good little girl. I'm sure she'll be a real contender someday.
So you're going to be like Marty Stauffer from
Not
the.
sure who that is.
Hold on, let me think about what that was on. That was Alaska the Wild, Alaska the. He was. It showed all the guys that live in Alaska, and he was a guy that flew his own plane, and his
Okay.
daughter always went with him out, and they build their own trap shack, and they lived there all winter long, doing nothing but trapping. He would drag his daughter with. It was really fun to watch. It was probably my favorite part of the show.
Yep.
Maybe it ain't Stauffer, but his name was Marty. I remember that.
Yep.
But he would drag his daughter with all the time, and she wanted to go. She had to be with her dad in the winter, so he'd drag his wife and his daughter, or just his daughter, and they would have these little things. So I think I think passing anything on through kids, especially your own, is an incredible thing
Oh yeah.
because I think that's power.
Yep.
You can
It's
be rich and miserable.
oh
You know
yeah.
what I mean? You have all the money in the world and still have nothing. So I think
Yep.
the fact of what you're trying to do is awesome. Now, there was a couple things that you said. One was you said your dad or your grandpa, I call him dad because you said he was like your dad,
Yep.
was a professional trapper. So in your opinion, what makes him, you, or whoever a professional trapper? Where does
Well,
that line become?
a lot of people say they're a professional trapper, and some of them aren't. Um, but a lot of people say they're professional trappers just because they have a trapping supply business. I wouldn't say that the supply business has much to do with it. I would say that the supply business is a casualty for being a writer, and it would be a casualty to being a professional trapper. Like if you had a business mindset, you could have a supply business, or it doesn't have to be trapping; it could be just anything outdoors. It could even be a tool business for all that for what that matters, or a mom and pop store. It doesn't matter. Um, so that really has nothing to do with it. Really, what I think makes a professional trapper is somebody that lives it. Like there's a part of you in the mindset of a professional trapper that never really finishes trapping once the season closes. It is in the back of their mind every day. I wouldn't say it's every minute of every day, but it's in the back of their mind, and they live the lifestyle of a trapper. Really, trappers are um, a lot of people say trappers are like vagabonds or uh, drifters or such. They're really they're probably the most freest people in the world. The professional trapper, because they don't need anybody. They're very self reliant. They can kind of take care of their own. Um, and I would say that's kind of what um, I would say that's what makes a professional trapper. And the other thing that would make someone a professional trapper is the fact that they got the animals behind them. A prime example would have been my grandfather. I mean, he would catch thousands of muskrats in a season. Um, 604 muskrats in 2 weeks. Um, that's when you do the average, I think that's like 45 a day, and that's just the average.
That's
Um,
insane.
and he trapped them, skinned them, fleshed them, and repeated it every day for 2 weeks. And I did 40. No, I can't. The best year on mink for me has been 57. My best time on mink was 19 and 12 days. Um, and that's just mink. Um, Muskrats, I've caught lots of them, hundreds of them in a single season. Um, um, 200-300 raccoons. Um, several dozen mink a season. Um, dozens of foxes. It really the numbers themselves don't really matter too much. It matters that you can consistently do it. And there's unfortunately you had this more in the fur boom than you do now. And the fur boom was like in the 70s, where you had people writing books that really should not have been writing books on the subject. Um, but with that being said, I would say a professional is someone that really knows their craft and they know it inside and out.
I like that answer. That's a good answer.
Yeah, it's kind of a complicated answer, but it's
Oh no, I think the answer makes sense because it's not just by success; it's by
yeah,
knowledge and know how. And do you live trapping? Do you not live
yeah,
trapping? I get it. I think it makes perfect sense. I don't think it was at all. I don't think it was that at all. I think it was a great answer. So
yeah.
another thing I wanted to ask you is, and this is huge because I think this will tell people really why your book is so important. Okay, so what makes your book different from everybody else's?
Which book?
Any of them. A lot of your books are how to, right? So a
Yeah,
lot of your trapping books, mink, beaver, everything is how to. So
yeah,
I can tell you from experience, your mink book has 45 chapters. 45.
yeah, yep.
Okay. So I went through this. I looked. Don't get me wrong. I went through your book. I looked at it. I didn't want
I
to like
appreciate that.
I didn't want to crinkle the pages and do that because we were doing it as a giveaway. So I didn't want to get deep into it where I ruined the book or did something. But
Yeah.
I went through. I read all your chapters. I read kind of the basic pages. I wanted to know what it was about and what it was. So, what makes your book for anybody looking for a trapping book out there? What makes your book different?
Well, there's a thing called Writer's Right and Trapper's Trap. Carol Black said that. He was Blackie. Everyone knew him as Blackie. I take the BS out of this, and there's a lot of BS in trapping. Um, and I make it really simple. And all of my books operate on a very simple manner. The only, and that's what makes them different. Um, they're full of knowledge, not only about the animal, but about trapping the animal, about handling the animal, about selling the fur, about the locations, especially, um, and really what makes that animal tick, what makes that animal be that animal. The man who taught me is really a autobiography of sorts. Um, and that's really about me being raised by my grandfather. And I could have wrote two different stories out of my childhood. I wrote the good one, um, and I think maybe that might be another reason why I became a writer. Going back to your first question, because I had a kind of an uh, ugly upbringing in a way, and it was kind of painful. And writing is kind of a, um, a release for that, because I don't really talk about it. So if that makes any sense.
I think it's perfect sense. I've been in life. I mean, I'm 45. I've been in life enough to know. I've been in counseling. I have kids that have been in counseling. I have friends who've been in counseling. And let me tell you that the one thing they tell you is write it down.
Yep.
Anywhere you go, they tell you write it down. So no, that makes absolute perfect sense. They say if you can't say your feelings, if you can't talk your feelings, write them down and express your feelings for pen and
Yep.
paper. So
And
no, I think that's if that's your way, good for you, man. Kudos.
I started my business, I think, more or less because I'm more of a workaholic. I'm 28 years old, and I I've done something that most people dream about and they never do, for whatever reason. Um, the reasons isn't so much important that they just don't do their dreams. I think that um, there are three kinds of people. There's four kinds of people. There's doers, there's putterers, there's dreamers, and then at the very bottom, then there's takers. Um, I'm a doer, and everything you could find in my books about how to trap is knowledge I've gained either from my own experience trapping, and I've had a lot of experience trapping. Um, Usually, when trapping season gets here, it starts October 25th, and I don't stop until February 15th. That's when the first part of the season closes. So I'll take a few days off at that point and kind of get my bearings back together. And then spring beaver season starts shortly after that, and I finish out with spring beaver season up until about April 1st. Depending on how fast the ice goes out. If the ice goes out really fast, the beavers get cut up, and then they're not worth trapping. Now, if I'm doing nuisance work, then it's later. It depends really on what kind of trapping I'm doing at that point. If I'm doing nuisance work or if I'm doing regular fur trapping, and I do a lot of nuisance work too now. Um, that's not as fun as the fur trapping, but it's um,
That's because it's a job, right? That's because it makes it a job.
well, not really. You're dealing with people, and the adventure of it goes away.
Yeah.
When you're fur trapping, there's a bit of adventure to it. Like I've had instances where I'm trapping on the ice, and I fell through the ice one time. I land on a 4-inch log in the middle of bottomless water almost, and I'm up to about my chest. I'm still dry though. My boots didn't go underwater. But if I'd have took my foot off that log, I'd have went straight to the bottom. Um, I got lucky. Um, I got 9 lives, I guess. And So there's a lot of adventure to fur trapping that just isn't there with nuisance work. You never know what's going to hit you out on a trap line. Nuisance work, you know what it's gonna be. You got to talk to the client. You got to sign a contract. You got to remove the animal, whether the animal's inside, outside, whatever. Um, and It's just one of those things that you gotta deal with.
It's kind of what you love and helps make the paybook, right? Like it's kind of that in between.
It is the nuisance work I could probably live without. But it's it's one of those things you got to do it. I mean, it there's more money in nuisance wildlife control than there is fur trapping, and that's sad saying that, but that's the reality of the situation.
So you get all these furs. Do you what is it you do with these furs?
Well, I end up skinning, fleshing, and stretching the animals, and sometimes I have a meat market. And I'll be able to sell like muskrat meat or beaver meat or raccoon meat, or I'll sell the carcasses out to the bone market, which there are people that are interested in bones and stuff like that, and skulls of different animals.
All right, not to cut you off, but what do they use the bones for?
I guess decorations. I've never
Okay.
figured that. I've never
Okay.
figured that one out. I don't understand it. But some people are into that kind of thing. Actually, a lot of people. I shouldn't just say some people. Um, and but the fur is really where the bulk of the money's made. And then, of course, you can make money off the animal glands. Like beavers have beaver castor, and the castor itself sells for a pretty penny.
You make that yourself? All that yourself?
What?
All your like beaver castor and things like that?
Well, I don't make the castor. The beaver makes it.
Right, but I mean you make the lure.
Yeah, I do have my own line of lures. So yeah, I do make my own lures and stuff for my business. Um, but the biggest thing is, like I said, with the fur market itself, you have, I would say, I guess I do make all that's what I end up selling anyway. Um, I finish it into the raw fur stage. Once it leaves me, it goes to a buyer. If the buyer tans it, then it goes to a tannery. If not, it goes to an auction or to a private tanner, and then it goes to a tannery, and then it gets made into a jacket, a coat. Well, I just said the same thing. A coat, a hat, gloves, whatever it could be. That they even pillowcases out of some fur, even beaver blankets, stuff like that.
That was one of the questions we had for you was, do you do any of your own, hats, gloves? Do you
No,
you make any of your own? I know you said you lived in a shack for 6 years. Did you ever make any of your own to stay warm or do any of that?
nope, nope. I heated my cabin with firewood. I had the first year I had a crosscut saw, and I cut firewood by hand because I was too cheap to go out and buy a chainsaw. The next year I bought the chainsaw, but I managed, but it wasn't so much being young and dumb. It was really, I had a dream, and I had a dream that I would have an outdoor business. I'd have books. I'd have all of that. I'd have a family. I'd have a house, and that was my dream. Like as soon as I got out of school, I knew exactly what I wanted. Today, most kids do not know what they want. I don't think most kids know what they want until they reach the age of 30. At that point, there goes half of your life, really. Um, and there's a lot of missed opportunity there. Um, so I'm not really sure um, about that, but I do know that I knew exactly what I wanted. So I um, I lived as cheap as possible to make it happen, and
Do you believe you accomplished your goal?
I think so. I mean,
Is there a lot more of the dream left?
some parts of it. The writing thing, I don't know how much farther I can go in that. I think I just about accomplished everything I wanted to do.
Now, is your goal to do a book for each animal?
Yeah, I would like to do. I would like to write a canine book just to say I done it. I would like to write a muskrat trapping book, again, more or less to say I done it. Um, and maybe something on the other animals as well. But those are the main ones I'd want to cover is fox, coyote, and muskrats. Because those are the common fur bearers, along with raccoons, mink, and beavers. Um, and then the man who taught me was my very first book, and now the Born Under the Wandering Star. I'm not really sure what's going to happen with that. I'm editing it right now and mix it. I have to mix it later. Um, and and then of course there's the mystery novel. So I don't know what that's going to happen. If that's going to be anything at all. Um, we'll
You don't
see.
know unless you try.
Well, that's the thing. You don't know unless you try. And I I started my business and all that, and started a landscaping business too. Um, so that way I had a little bit of, I guess, normalcy, if you could put it that way. Um, I like working off the land. I like working with my hands, um, and that's important to me. Um, I like to stay busy, and
Oh, absolutely. I get that one.
if I sit too long, I start to get depressed, and I start to think about things I really just shouldn't be thinking about. Um, uh, I mean, well, what happened happened. It just it is what it is. You know, you gotta move on sooner or later. Um,
Hey, man, I pray one day God frees you of it.
I
Um,
appreciate
I
that.
really do, because at some point that man has the power to free you of every thought you have. So,
That's true. That's true. I'm a born again Christian. Um,
so
I that part I am. Um, and it is what it is. You know.
yeah, just put your faith there. You'll get through it every day. I can
Yep.
assure you that.
That's the main thing.
So, do you set up at these? I know on Chris actually sent me the date. I believe it's June 12th. There's a trapping association. Do you set up at any of these? Do you do any of these events?
Yeah, I do. That would be the Pennsylvania Trappers Association, if that's the one you're talking about.
Yep.
That'll be in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. I'll be there for the whole show. I'll be at the National Trappers Association annual rendezvous or convention, whatever they call it. And in July, I think that's in Harrisonburg, Virginia. There's a show at Little Valley put on by the Cattaraugus County Trappers Association on the second weekend of August. I'll be there. I'll be at the New York State Trappers Association's convention at the around Labor Day weekend. I'll be on that one. Um, I don't know if we'll be doing any smaller shows or not. The babies kind of got us on kind of a tight schedule, so we're you know, main thing is finding a sitter. Um, Granted, we kind of have that taken care of with our families, but that's you know, you can only travel so much with a little one, so we'll see how that goes. Um, but those are the four biggest shows of the year, and we'll be at those.
Now, when you go to these shows, I have to ask this. This completely has nothing to do with anything. You run into my man Matt Brophy at all?
Oh yeah, I'm good friends with Matt.
He's a great
Um,
dude.
he is a great guy. He owns Epler Fur Company, and runs a very good business there.
Yeah,
And
Matt Brophy's a good dude. He's local for us. I deal with him a lot because he's local,
yep,
and he is such a great dude. That guy is.
he is.
He's a bag of fun to be around. I can tell you.
Yep. Yeah, I usually call him uh, every little while, every couple of months or so. I say every couple of months. It might be every 3 or 4 months, something like that. Um, and he's helped me out a lot in getting my business going in that.
And that's the type of guy he is. He will do that. I mean, he's that guy. Will I always say I don't know how he works a full-time job and does what he does, because that man would.
Yep.
That man will help anybody, and I love it. I love that you and him talk. He's a great dude.
Yep, and he stocks my lures. He kind of promotes my lures for me, so that's really good. And actually, my books are available through other supply dealers besides myself. Sterling Fur Company, that run by Keith Winkler out of Sterling, Ohio. He stocks my books. Cumberland's Northwest Trapper Supply, they stock my books. Schmidt's Enterprises out of Minnesota, they stock my books. Northern Sport Company stocks my mink book. F&T Fur Harvesters stock The Man Who Taught Me. So my books are available elsewhere. Locally here in Western New York, you can find them either through me or through Johnson's Country Store up in Lockport. And I would assume there are a few other vendors, but I just can't think of their names.
Now, not to interrupt. Can they find your book at these trapping associations? Do you take these with?
Yes, I always take copies of the books. I plan on having some copies of The Man Who Taught Me, but the order is a little slow. So we'll hopefully get them before the show commences. If not, we'll have them at the National. If you really want a copy of The Man Who Taught Me, you could order them through me or directly through the publisher at Rose Dog Books, or you could order them straight through like Barnes and Noble, Walmart. They all have a link to it. I think they're even on Amazon at this point.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is there a place online your book could be found? But that pretty well answers it.
Yeah, any of the trapping supply dealers I mentioned have them online as well. It's one of those. I see he's got it popped up on the screen.
Chris is good at what he does, man.
Yep. The Man Who Taught Me is, like I said, my first book, and that in itself, I wrote it in 3 weeks, and I was literally putting in 20-hour days and wrote it in 3 weeks. The original draft, and the original draft was a lot longer than the finished book. So it was an interesting time.
So I guess at the end of this is we want to right now. We really want to push your books for you. We want to do what we can to get that books out. So we're hitting close to our time slot. Let's tell them again. What's the name of your new book?
It's not released yet.
Not yet, but it's coming.
I don't know exactly when it's coming, but it'll be called Born Under a Wandering Star.
Okay, and this talks about your adventure as you lived in a trapping shack for years and kind of put it all together, right?
And it actually ends on me getting married and the start of my business. And it actually ends on the death of my grandfather. That's when it ends. It ends on that because when he died, I ended up with where I grew up, and that's where I live now. And that's kind of why I ended it there, because it made sense to end it there, and
it opens a door for more.
Yeah, it does. It does open a door for more, but it's not so much that. It was more or less the perfect ending, because it really. Then when I say the perfect ending, that the ending was really, it ended on the start of my family. So like my circle with him being my dad closed when the circle of my daughter just started to open, if that makes any sense.
Dude, I love the way you did that. Yeah, honestly I didn't see it that way, but that makes sense.
She's right at the very end. I finished with her, believe it or not, saying when she was born and that, because she hasn't done anything yet. She's just a baby, so you really can't say anything as far as adventure. But that's my next. I can't really say it would be my next story, but that would be that's my next adventure.
So I guess what people should really know of this is more or less like sequel This is more almost like a number two of the man who taught me
It it
in your
it,
life.
it was, but the Born Under a Wandering Star is a lot more painful than the Man Who Taught Me. See, the Man Who Taught Me was written in such a way that I hid a lot of I glance over my car accidents. I glance over all the bad things. I don't even mention half of them, or even any of them really. In Born Under a Wandering Star, I can't talk about it, but I do mention things, and um, so that way the reader kind of gets the idea that okay, this is why he became a writer. This is why for legal reasons I can't mention that. I can't mention. That would be slander if I did that. That wouldn't be
Absolutely.
right. That wouldn't be right. So um, you gotta make sure it's done the right way. Um, and so we're still in the process of working on that book, um, and editing it. We'll see what all happens with it. I'd like to see it printed. Um, I'd really like to see a publisher buy it. That's what I'd like to see is a publisher buy it, and then I don't have the hassle of promoting it and all that stuff. I can just more or less stock it and sell it. My But I don't know what book comes after that. I'd like to say a fox trapping book, but we'll see what happens.
Hey, how-to books are big. Everybody wants to do their own. So I know we're right around our time frame, but I'm going to throw this out of you. Have you ever made any of these like you turn in your how-to mink, your how-to this? Have you ever turned any of those into any YouTube videos?
I don't really understand it.
Because
Um,
nowadays those are big. Um,
they are. Now I do know that's a good way to go is like with YouTube and stuff like that. I just don't understand how to get them up there and all that stuff, like uploading them and stuff like that. And I am kind of a perfectionist. The man who taught me was put together kind of roughly in a way. It really needed to be rewritten and needed to be re-edited. But I was short on money when I put that book together. All the other books were done the way they should have been done. Um, and I'm not sure how phones would be for that. I know I struggle with taking pictures with them, just regular pictures. So granted, um, I'm not exactly the best photographer in the world. So
I
my,
get it.
my my thing is writing, not photography.
My kids, listen, my kids, I couldn't use half the stuff I do without Chris or my kids. Let me tell you, I'd be doomed. I said maydays to Chris to try to get me out of the messes I make. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
get it. I really get it.
yeah. It's but yeah. So we're working on it. I recorded a few things during trapping season on a mink that I caught and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm not sure exactly what it'll be.
The
But
how-to videos are pretty big. I just threw that out there at you. I'm not telling
yep.
you do it that way or not do it that way. That don't do something that isn't your thing.
Oh yeah.
It was just more a question on the sense of they do become very big. Like I have
Yep.
tractors I work on, and I'm always like, well, how do I figure out how to do this on a tractor? So what do I do? Look up a how-to video. Somebody went and showed me how to do it on a tractor, or how to change it, or how to fix it. Right. So
Yep. Well, my uncle told me once when I was a kid. He said if you want to learn something, it was either written down in a book, a magazine, or it was done on a video. And all you got to do is find it. And you can learn a lot doing that. Of course, I got thousands of books. And I read a lot, avid reader. And I, TV, not so much, but books, I like books. I like literature and all that
books are
stuff.
healthy.
They
Books
are.
are healthy.
It feeds the imagination.
Yeah, books are healthy. I always say books are healthy. Listen, I say that, but I don't read books. I am not a big book reader. I
Yep.
will, however, read some. But I look at Chris. Chris is a book writer. He hates me right now. I'm not a big book reader. Now, Chris wrote comics. I like the comics. They have pictures. But I'm not a big book reader. However, I do think books are healthy. I have a daughter who loves them.
Yep.
And she will just read them over and over again. My other daughter, she loves them days and days. She hates them. But I have one who just loves them. So I get it. Like, I think they are healthy. I'm going to put it this way. I promote her going to her room to read a book. I promote that. I think it's
Yep.
fantastic. If she's not sitting in front of TV and reading, I think that's incredible. So I never say no to that. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. Kids being on TV is the worst thing. Not TV, but well, TV, yes, but like the whole game thing, like the Xbox, the PlayStation, the so many parents these days just hand the kid the controller
Oh yeah.
just to get them out of their hair.
We got to get you to stock some of our board games up there
Well, that'd be something we could talk about.
because that's what we that was the design of what was made is putting this board game out there so kids aren't behind a controller. They
Yeah,
can play it with their family and still have the experience of hunting.
yeah, and that's important that kids not only get to experience the outdoors, but that they get away from uh, the screen.
Yeah.
So many these days are stuck on the screen, and I'm not so sure that's healthy.
I don't think
Um,
so.
um, and I'm not really being political about that either. It just you know um, it's hard, you know. But at the same time, I don't know, you know. But definitely, it's something we could talk about. Um,
All right. Yeah, we'll have to hit you up on that one. That's definitely a big one.
yep.
I do know this. We've hit our time limit. So I want to say, anyone out there, please, you can go to Andrew Zysek Enterprises. You can order traps, books, how-tos. You can learn Andrew's story. Andrew has a story, and of course, he has some new stories coming out. You can go there. You can do that. You can also, if you have any questions on trapping, I know Andrew's a good guy. We've had this conversation before. Send him a message. He makes his own lures, his own stuff. He will help you and guide you in the process of doing this. Just send him a message. He is a great dude. Andrew, I want to say once again, thank you for sending the book. The winner
Yep.
of that book was Cliff Sprankle on Thursday night. So I appreciate you sending that book. I think that was incredible of you. And Cliff's going to learn a lot from the mink trapping. Thank you once again for joining us. And finally, guys, you can find our lives podcast not only here on YouTube and Facebook, but you can also find us through Apple, iTunes, and many other places. So we have started that. That is official. It does happen now. And this will be uploaded there. I want to say thank you for watching, and God bless every one of you. And have a great night.
Yep. You too.
Thank you.